Hello, and welcome to the MindCep Podcast, helping you maximize your performance. This is your host, Alex Muir, and in today's episode of our special guest series, we're going to be speaking with Dean A. Roberts. Dean is a TEDx speaker, author, and entrepreneur. And please welcome Dean A. Roberts to the show. And this episode is brought to you by RadioGuestList.com, the #1 free radio guest, podcast, and talk show guest expert interview booking service on the internet. Briefly about your book title, and then we're talking about your TEDx talk on gratitude. Can you delve into little details on your gratitude talk for TEDx?
Well, I think gratitude is an elixir. It can solve most people's problems if they use it correctly, because we North Americans, almost to the person, are so much better off in so many ways than all of the people that have lived in history and most of the people that are alive on the planet right now. And people go on whining and complaining about the first world problems. And once you create a bad attitude, it's a whole chemical cascade towards unhappiness and depression.
That's right. Yeah.
Gratitude for me is it's the ticket out of trouble.
And you also mentioned in your email that after reading Hardwired Happiness, that it really completely changed your perspective on life and, towards gratitude. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Well, it reinforced a lot of things that I had already known and worked on, but I think it made it specifically clear how repetition can actually rewire our parents and our schools and our friends wire us when we're kids. And those are very deeply ingrained ways of being, perceptions. And some of them change hard or not at all for a lot of people. So I think it's Rick Hansen that wrote Hardwired Happiness, talks about repetition as the key to rewiring. And that's what got me into. Years ago, I sold insurance for a living before I got in business. And my sales manager told me to say, do it now, whenever I wasn't doing anything. I used to just be driving along, do it now, do it now, do it now. And it worked. But like most good things, or a lot of good things at that time in my life, I didn't keep it up.
Gotcha.
That's what brought about this whole idea of repeating, pick it up, put it back, write it down, do it now. Was I was reading an old copy, a copy of Marcus Aurelius that I've been reading on and off for 40 years. And it was written right across the top of the page. Do it now, do it now, do it now. And I thought of that scene in 1963 and how it worked, and then I quit it. And I started doing it again, and I noticed I was picking stuff up. I was crossing the street to pick up garbage, that it just sort of changed the way I looked at things out of order, whether it's garbage on the street or a screw gun on my desk instead of in the shop.
Interesting. Very interesting. And you said, so you also got some more ideas from Marcus Aurelius's book.
I've read his. I got that first in early 60s, and I've read it almost every day.
Wow. So you use it as like your kind of reference guide.
Well, no, it's not a reference guide. It's a reminder guide. I know what crap that he writes about. I've been reading it for so many years, but it's you got to. The skill of really controlling your life is to be able to remember things when you need it. Like I'm out with friends and I'm stuffing food in my face, and I knew 50 years ago you should chew your food. So it's a question of being present enough to remember that when you're eating. And it's the same thing with remembering to keep perspective. So I use 3 books as a reminder every morning. I have a sauna that I use every morning. And Marcus Aurelius Meditations, Joe Goldstein's Insight Meditation, and Robert DeRope's Master Game. Those 3 books, more than any other that I've read, have been formative in my life.
Wow. And Robert DeRope, how do you spell that? It's like DUROKE?
No, it's DEROPP.
Oh, DeRope. Yeah.
Have you read Gurdjieff or Ouspensky?
No.
Well, he comes out of that school of philosophy. I would strongly suggest that if you're interested in self-evolution, that both those authors are important stepping stones.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm a big reader, and I listen to, actually nowadays I've kind of transitioned. I used to read a lot of hard copy books or paperback, and now I've transitioned to podcasts, audiobooks, and then I read a newsreader, and then I get pre-curated um, articles and blog articles relating to the fields that I want to learn. And right now, I really want to learn everything there is to know about podcasting and audio learning. And so I'm really intrigued by that. So I'll definitely look into those books that you mentioned as well.
Oh, the podcasting is such an incredible advance.
Oh, it is.
Any special interest that you have, and you can go back and listen over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole paradigm.
Oh, it is. And you're gaining so much value and wisdom from so many guests, that people have on their podcast. And that's why I love interviewing people, because you're basically getting their whole book of life in like an hour or half an hour, right? So,
hey, Alex, one key idea can change your life. If you can get it and implement it, if you get it at the right time, timing has got a lot to do with the way life comes out. And you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so it's exposing yourself to that kind of material on an ongoing basis. I listen to podcasts a couple hours a day, usually. Whenever I'm driving, I've got something on. And it's incredibly new and valuable paradigm.
Yeah. It's to me, it's like a new way of getting educated, because the biggest issue that I see with a lot of people, that they don't become successful, or they don't get to that point where they feel they're successful, is they stop learning after high school. They think after high school or college or university, they're like, oh, I got my learning out of the way and that it's done. Well, that's not the case. More than ever, after you're done school, you have to go do even more homework. You have to do even more research into, introspection and self-reflection and learning about yourself and how you learn. And because sometimes coming out of university or school, we have to relearn all over again, because we did it because we were taught to do it a different way. And that wasn't learning to our best strengths and to the best of our abilities. So coming out of university, you have to learn how to learn again, in a way. And I know for myself, I'm a very visual and auditory learner. I still need to read a lot. But my strong suit is through audio and through visuals. So
I did very poorly in school, and by the time I was 16, I got thrown out of high school. And it wasn't until the second or third year of my 20s that I became interested in reading. And that was through, I became Catholic. My first wife was Catholic, and to get married, you needed to become Catholic, or at least go to these pre-Cana conferences. And that was the first time I really read for interest, because I became very involved in that, and I studied it like a demon, And that was it. I didn't even read well when I got out of school. And for the first time in my life, I found something I was really interested in reading. And that was the beginning. I mean, my wife and I spend an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning reading to each other out of a bunch of different books. Right now, we're reading a book called Deep Work by Cal
Newport. Yeah.
And another one by called The End of Depression by Mark Amen. And those are the kind of books we read on a regular basis. And it just, the more I learn, the further into the greater my perception of my own ignorance. So that's lifelong learning, man. I'm going to be 81 this year.
Wow, that's incredible. And you're still working. Do you still have your health food store as well? The Green Earth?
We have it, and I go there, but not that much. It's pretty well run by itself. My wife's son and daughter were running it, and they're doing a pretty good job with it. This virus thing put a little bit of damper on it.
Yeah, I know. And what's your take? Because since you're turning 81, you've been through it all. You've been through depression, you've been through the war, you've been through probably several other epidemics or pandemics, possibly.
Yeah.
Um, so you've really, so what is your take on what's going on right now with the pandemic? Like, I knew something like this was coming, especially for my generation as well. I'm only 27, but I have been through SARS, and I didn't really understand it because I was so young. I was only when SARS was coming about. I think I was only, whew, I would have been, I don't know, 10 to 12 or 12 to 16 or something like that, around that range. And then I did go through the '08. Yeah, that was kind of a recession or a depression in 2008. But that's pretty much what I've been through. But yeah, tell us a little bit about kind of, your feelings on this pandemic and how, how you and your family are coping with it, and what advice you give to our listeners.
I, I think that I've stayed home. I haven't really gone in because I use it for an excuse as much as anything else. I really like being home. We live out in the country, and I've got a workshop and a lot of convenience around here. I don't know. I think that I look at Taiwan or Sweden, and they're taking a totally different approach, and I don't know that they're any worse off. But what I really see as much more important than this pandemic is this is going to be the final thumb in the balloon, pin in the balloon, that we've lived recklessly financially for years. The federal national debt, the student debt, the mortgage debt, the corporate debt. We are at an unprecedented level of debt in all categories. And I think that this is going to be the pin, going to have a catastrophic financial change that could start tomorrow, or they could maybe drag it out for a couple more years. But no country or no person or no entity can continually create more debt. At some point, have to recognize.
Yeah, point the chickens comes to roost, and and then people won't be prepared because it's going to be so large scale, right?
I'm just glad I live in the country. I don't know how to. I'm not going to be shooting people coming down the driveway. A lot of people around here talk about arming themselves and everything, but I don't know. I really don't know if it would even be a defensible place to live. We're right across the street from the police station down at the store, and we have a 26,000 square feet. There's a lot of room in an apartment and everything. So I'm thinking I might wind up living there and taking care of the policemen across the street and their families and the firemen. And we could live off the inventory for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extreme example, and I think it's a very unlikely thing. But look around the world. I mean, things like this are going on, and people are living really bad in a lot of places.
Yeah, no, they are, and especially in the like Africa or parts of Europe, like they just don't have the same access to medicine or being able to get do trials for medicine,
right?
And vaccines. So it's much more complicated in other parts of the world for sure. But I know that with the help of from North America, I know we can definitely help out a lot of people in other underprivileged parts of the world. Yeah. I know as hard as the situation it is for all of us in North America, I feel there's definitely things that we can do. We have some of the brightest minds in all of the world, and knowing that we have some of the brightest minds, we got to use those minds for the greater good, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a responsibility of the gift. But I think that probably the most important issue in anybody's life is to learn how to manage themselves, how to take care of themselves, and how to create a resilience and a strength of personality where they're not getting mad, where people don't get depressed and they don't get upset about things or hold grudges or be angry or act out of anything except gratitude and kindness. And I think that it's a long course, because as you go, it's like going up a hill. The further you get, the higher you get, the further you can see the what's needed to continue. And that self-training is that the Guru Jeev that I mentioned before. His work got me interested in, or got me looking at life that way, that I have this opportunity in all of the experiences of my life to respond in a wholesome, grateful, kind way, and to practice that no matter how difficult or how gruesome the situation might be. That's why I'm
Right.
sorry I wasted time talking about depression. I don't even know why I started that.
Well, you know what? It is very trending topic though, because the relationship between depression and mindfulness, and how the reason why so many a lot more people in the world are depressed or feeling down and out is because reactive mindset. They've been building a reactive mindset over a period of years, and I myself, I went through that when I was in financial services industry. It was really high stress, and it turns out it wasn't my right fit. It wasn't the right career path that I chose at the time. And what helped me cope and get out of that and transition to something that was more of a fit for my personality was mindfulness and meditation. And I can't stress it enough, like how much it's impacted my life, and how like they say, like every time you meditate, you're rewiring your brain to be more neutral and more present and in the moment, and not as reactive to what's going on around you. So.
Well said. When I said depression, I was talking about a financial depression.
Oh yeah.
But that was
That's how it starts, though, right? Like financial depression comes from a very large, group of people either being fearful or greedy, right? One of the two. So.
well, yes, I think it is mismanagement and recklessness, and not taking the time to understand the consequences of their acts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And politics is a short-term business. They can't see any further than the next election. Most
Yeah.
people involved, and that's they make decisions based on the wrong premise.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we got. But I agree 100%. Reactive reaction, choosing our reactions rather than having them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then much of your success you attribute to scalability, your gift of scalability. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because for your manufacturing business that you said that was what's set the stage for your career and your life, or a big part of it. And
it was, because through money's great if you got enough. Having enough is, I think, almost as important for the spiritual work as anything else. Because if you're worried about the rent and what you're going to have for supper and all of that, it's really difficult to focus on self-improvement. So I think that's something to establish a financial base that's at least for that coincides with your taste. And I did that. And Think and Grow Rich is a book that I read and reread and read over and over again. And I really have to attribute the success that I had in manufacturing to that book, and to then gathering around a group of people that were involved and equally interested in the well-being of the company. It's hard to do things alone. You need to have a group of collaborative people that collaborate on a common purpose. And I was real lucky with that. I heard some good people. I treated them as partners. It was our thing. It wasn't just mine.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like the collaboration and having the right key people is what makes you successful. Like, cause you can't do it alone. Like you said, like, and I'm still in the early stages of my own, online business, and I'm still got a lot to learn, but I feel like every time I work on it, I get a little bit closer and closer to how I want it to evolve over time. And I've been starting to meet some key people that I know I'll be needing help from in the future, because they have their strengths that can help with my business, and which aren't necessarily my strengths, but I've always been fascinated with the marketing aspect of my business, and that's why I love podcasting, because it's another way for you to have people. You can make those connections, build relationships as well through audio, and then continually get to know your guests, and see what they're up to and books that they're writing, and it's just another great way to build business relationships as well. And then if down the road in the future, you could easily be like, oh yeah, I had so and so on my podcast, and they're they're doing this and this. It's so incredible.
It's really a great way to meet people. And if you listen to some of the major like Tim Ferriss or Dave Asprey, and they're all the time. Just today I heard Tim Ferriss say that 25% of the people that he has on his show he met through a newsletter that he
Yeah,
sends.
yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
This
and
networking is a very important aspect of getting what the most out of what you're doing.
hmm yeah, and so you mentioned Dave Asprey. That's the bulletproof brand, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
bulletproof.
That guy's a very interesting guy as well. He's very similar to Tim Ferriss, like with their fascination with right, maximizing performance, and he's all about brain performance. A lot
Yeah.
of his research, and I find that very fascinating. And that's actually a big part of my own brand. Is I call it mindset, like your mind and a bicep, right?
Right.
Because you work your body and you're working your mind, and then you work your mind, and then it's improving your body. Like they both go hand in hand. So that's why I came up with that name.
That's a good.
And it was originally the Will to Win podcast, but I found out later on that someone else already has that name. So I'm just like, no, I got to change my name. So I changed it to MindCep, and it's all about maximizing your performance. And that's why the guests that I have on, I can find, just based on your stories that you've been telling me on this interview, like, anyone that I have on, I always find golden nuggets of wisdom that tells me how, and our listeners, how you and other people have maximized their performance and gotten better at what they do. So
I'll give you a couple of lines that I picked up very early in my career, and I've referred to them over and over. Ayn Rand said, she wrote the Atlas Shrugged and a bunch of other books. She said, live to the limit of your knowledge and expand your knowledge to the limit of your life. And
wow.
that it comes to my mind often, because I diligently study a couple hours a day because I'm just interested in so many different things. And another one that was from a poem called The Cremation of Sam McGee. And he said, a promise made is a debt unpaid. And I felt that's a life skill that I've tried to stand by. If I tell somebody I'm going to do it, you can take it to the bank. It's going to happen. And that includes being on time or any sort of a personal commitment that you make. And that's why write it down is so important. I don't speak idly. If I'm going to do something, if I tell somebody I'm going to do something or decide I want to do something myself, I write it down. And I refer to that. I have a thing on my cell phone where I change the list every day or two and cross things off as I do them. And those two lines, a debt unpaid, a promise made is a debt unpaid. It still gives me goose pimples.
Yeah, it's a very powerful statement, and that's one of the hardest parts. Is like, you make a promise, you got to be able to keep it, right?
Absolutely. And be judicious about who you promise and what. Don't just casually say, oh, I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do that. Realize it's a real serious, well, to me, it's a serious anyway. It's a serious commitment. So I don't do it casually. Like I don't say I'm going to be there at 3:00. If I can get somebody to agree between 3 and 3:30, I'll do that. But if I say 3:00, I'll be there at 2:45. Or
hmm
if I'm not, I can call the undertaker and find out when the services are.
Right. No, that's so true.
So there's a couple lines. There's a whole bunch of in my blog. I usually pick up a line of somebody, either something I thought of, or something I read from somebody else, and then I write a short 10 or 12 line poem about it. And there's probably 1,000 of them on my blog, and I send out an email every 3-4 days, which I'm going to bring it down to every other day, with a thought on some aspect of understanding and living well on the planet Earth.
And then another question I have for you, Dean, was what is your, from a holistic nutrition standpoint, because of your health food store and your experience with that over the years, what does your diet look like? Is it, do you still eat, meat and chicken, or do you still primarily plant-based or vegan or?
Yeah, primarily plant-based. Occasionally I'll have some chicken or beef, but I think that and only organic, local. I know the people. if I eat beef, I know where the cow came from. These people are biodynamic. They're even a step above, because this commercially fed and treated animals are very, very unwholesome to eat. And I think there's a certain psychic damage that you do to the world by partaking in that. These poor creatures are treated so incredibly bad. Um, I I think that a balance of exercise and enough sleep and hydration with good water and at least organic food. That's a low bar. We have a pretty good sized garden here, and that's when you know you're getting really good food, when you go out and pick it and either eat it or cook it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what does your training look like? You mainly do body weight, or you do a mix of body
I,
weight?
I have a very simple weightlifting routine, and I practice yoga once a week. I used to do it every day, but that's kind of got down to once a week. I do a lot of calisthenics every day, and every other day I either row or lift weights, and that keeps me fairly fit. I haven't lost much dropping the yoga back to once a week in terms of flexibility, a little bit, but I think that it's worth I never seem to have enough time to do what I want to do. So I've been trying to keep the whole exercise routine within an hour a day.
Yeah. And I can completely relate to that. I've actually really shifted up my routine, because my gym closed like mid-March. I've
Yeah.
been basically just doing body weight training. And what I'm trying to do, because, as you know, the human body just adapts so quickly to the same exercises that you're feeding it. So you got to really challenge it. And body weight training, it can be very challenging, but you just have to mix up your moves. So I've been really trying to work my way up to doing handstand push-ups, like against the wall.
Oh,
So
that's a good one. Yeah.
yeah. And then one arm push-ups, pistol squats. That's one-legged pistol squats where you just, you put out one leg and you're just like you're doing a regular squat.
Yeah.
So there's certain moves I'm better at right now, and then there's other moves that I have to work my way up to again. So a modified version of doing um, the the wall stand like push up
Yeah.
is doing the pike push up. So that's where you're really close, your hands and your legs are really close to one another, and then
Yeah.
you're going down like you're doing like a wall stand, or a handstand push up. So it's like a modified version of it, and that's what I'm working on right now. And then I'm going to work my way back up to doing the handstand push-ups, because it's just so good for your shoulders, your arms, your back, and it takes some serious strength to do. So it'll take me, that just doing that progression alone will take me a few weeks to get up to that point, or a month, could be more.
Yeah.
But it's so powerful, like what we can do with our body with just body weight training and no
Here's,
weights.
here's
So.
a thing that maybe you can really utilize. I read a long time ago about isometric contractions, and
Mm.
I formed a habit, and whenever I'm sitting, I put my legs out, bring them. I got this thing that I do over and over all day. That's a specific training, but even when I'm sitting, when I'm talking to you, I'm stretching my arms out and tightening them up and loosening them. I keep motion is important to any kind of fitness, but this isometric thing, you can maintain a pretty good level of fitness without doing anything except that. And and you're doing something else anyway. Whether you're driving. When I drive, I put it on cruise, and I like walking, up and down with my legs all the way for half an hour trip to where the store is. And there's a lot of things like that you can fit into other activities that can help you, because motion. You don't want. If I sit, then I want to stand, or I'm popping my legs out. That if you get that mindset, and it can help you your whole life.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're always force your mind to do movement when you're, even if the action is somewhat static, try and use some sort of movement to do that. Like when I was working in produce, like I was reading this book on building abs, and one thing that they said is try and reinforce any sort of movement into what you're doing. So if you're lifting a box, make sure you're doing a squat or a deadlift motion.
Right.
If you're so just that's kind of stuck with me ever since I was in produce, because that's when I was reading that book. But yeah, it works. It's so simple, and and because I've been doing it for so long, you do it on autopilot, right? So, and then just like like I'm sitting on it. I don't use a normal office chair. I use an exercise ball, so that helps as well with the ab contractions. So it's really really handy for that. So just little things that people don't really realize, right? That can make a big difference for our physique and our overall well-being.
Good health is a thousand small decisions.
Yep.
And the most powerful ingredient of good health is knowledge. You need to keep studying because there's so many, like intermittent fasting. That's something that I've only heard of the last couple of years, and I've been doing it routinely now. I try to eat within a 4 to 6 hour window.
Yeah.
And I've had a weight problem my whole life. I mean, a managed weight problem. I'm 140 pounds, but I've been 220 already, way back when I was young. And this has been such a gift to weight management for me over the last year. I pretty much eat anything I want as much as I want for 4 or 5 hours a day.
Wow.
And no problem, man. I mean, I get on a scale every day anyway because it's a lifelong habit, and I'm not going to get fat again. That's absolutely convinced of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I've experimented as well with the intermittent fasting, and it works. It works very well. I find that more challenging than doing a full day fast. I've also experimented with it. That's another form of intermittent fasting, but it's basically doing 24 to 48 hours with no food, just water, tea, or coffee. And that's actually works wonders for me. Like anytime I feel I'm overindulging or I'm eating too much, my appetite's just, I just feel like I'm just feeling ravenous and just like super hungry a lot. Then what I'll do to reset my appetite is I'll do a 24 to 48 hour fast, usually just 24 hours. Because it just completely resets my metabolism and my my gut. So, but it works very, very well. And I've been doing it on and off for the last 3 or 4 years. But it's definitely helps to keep the weight down. I'm 185 right now, but I would want to get down to 177 to 178. I've got a decent amount of muscle on me right now, but I want to be a little bit leaner. So, and doing the fasting really, really helps with that.
Yeah, I also fast occasionally, 24-hour fasts, because it gives your body a chance to go into other processes, revitalizing processes when it's not processing food anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the big theory behind this whole intermittent fasting and why it's so healthy.
Yeah, it's the detoxification principles behind it. It's giving your body the time to repair even more, because most of the time when when you were eating and weightlifting and training, we're just repairing the muscles, but we also need to be repairing our digestive system as well. So from all the excess food or if we have a combination of good food and bad food, it just helps mitigate the excess food or the bad food as well. So
absolutely. Another health key that I've read a lot about. You ever listen to Rhonda Patrick, Dr. Rhonda Patrick? She's got a podcast.
No, but I've heard of her, and I think she's
great, and she talks a lot about saunas and cold and hot challenge, resiliency. And I've had a sauna at different periods. I have one in my bedroom, and for years I had done it quite often. But she said that people that take 4 to 7 saunas, this is a long-term 50 or 60,000 person study in Scandinavia, that their chances of Alzheimer's, dementias was 65% less than people that didn't use any kind of cold, hot training. So that's one message that I could send out to anybody. And if they got any question about it, go to Rhonda Patrick's, I forget the name of her. You can find that easy enough. But she really goes into detail about all the reasons why that's so good, and so many studies that she found it. Because I'd rather be dead than have some kind of head rot where you didn't know where you were.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I really going out of my way to do everything I can to hold that one, And I've noticed I do have a certain amount of memory loss. But write it down. That's where that really comes in handy. I'm never anywhere without a pen or paper. Other little cards that I carry empty on my phone, and write it down. If you think of it, or you say you're going to do it, or even as far as going something from the house over to my office, which is in another building. I won't try to remember it. I'll write it down. That you don't forget, but there's another benefit to that too. Remembering takes energy.
Mm-hmm.
When you're saying, "Oh, I got to do that," don't worry about remembering it. Write it down at any age. It's a very good personal management technique.
Yeah, keeps you on pace and on task to what you want to get done during that day, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what is your last thing before we go today? Because I got another interview in the next 10 minutes here. What time do you usually wake up every day? Is it like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 4:30?
By 3:30 or 4 usually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the earliest that I've heard. Holy smokes.
Well, I'll tell you that people have certain personal circadian rhythms,
Yeah.
and it's really important you find out what yours is, because if yours is like mine, but you're going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and trying to sleep till 8 or 9, it really is. It's very hard to overcome that. It's like like the color of your eyes. So I naturally fell into it. If we're on vacation or wherever we are, man, 8:30, 8 o'clock, I sign off, and so I get up and I have some coffee. I do some writing, and then I finish up my emails. And my wife gets up about 6, and then we read together, and then I take a sauna. And days are pretty well laid out. That's what I really like about this quarantine thing.
Yeah.
I don't have these
distractions. Yeah. Well, I mean, you do, but you can still keep your regimented routine.
Right. I think that own the morning, rule the day. That's another one that helps me a lot.
Own the morning, rule the day. Yeah.
Sets you up for a full, puts you on track to do what you want to do for that day.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for joining us today, Dean. Really appreciate your time. Gained some awesome value and some golden nuggets from you today. And I definitely want to have you back on in the future, and to delve a little bit more into more of your business, entrepreneurial background and experience. And we'll definitely have you on as a guest in the future as well.
Yeah, stay in touch. I thought it was a really good interview.
For sure. And then before you go, how can we find you, and what platforms are you active on? I know you mentioned you do quite a bit of writing, so just so our listeners know.
I have a blog.
Okay.
And it's Boneyard Express. It's boneyardexpress.blogspot.com. But the thing they could do to get in touch with me is go to deanaroberts.com. I've written 3 books, and they're all available for free there. And especially just pick it up, put it back, write it down, do it now. I have to recommend that to anybody that's on some kind of a path of personal development, because it's a real strong tool. Pick it up, put it back, write it down, do it now. deanaroberts.com.
Right on. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Dean. You take care.
See you around.
All right. Bye for now. I hope you all enjoyed this special guest series episode brought to you by RadioGuestlist.com. Again, this is your host, Alex Muir. And if you'd like to learn more about kind of what I do and this podcast, MindCep Podcast, you can check me out on my social media. I always post all my links of my social media in every episode that I post, and I share all my posts, my podcast posts, on my LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, so you'll be able to check out the podcast links on there. So if you want to connect with me, get to know me, I will be answering messages on there if you have any questions. And again, if you want to hear more episodes like these, or if you have any feedback, please let me know on social media. You can send me a message, or you can feel free to follow my podcast, and be sure to keep checking in and see what I'm up to. I really appreciate everyone that listens to my podcast, and hope you guys all enjoyed, and see y'all next time. Take care.